The airplane had touched down 3 weeks earlier. September heat hung over the Roman airport like a blanket no one could shake off. Cassius Clay stepped onto the tarmac and felt the air move differently across his skin. 18 years old. First time away from American soil. The sounds around him carried languages he had never heard spoken aloud. Italian, German, Russian, French. Athletes from nations he could barely place on a map moved through customs in quiet, nervous clusters. He had packed light. One small bag. The same training gloves he had used in Louisville, the leather worn soft in all the right places. In his pocket, a photograph of his mother. He touched it twice before boarding the bus to the Olympic Village. The village itself looked nothing like West Louisville. White stone buildings that seemed older than America itself. Narrow streets that curved instead of running straight. Flags from dozens of countries hung from balconies and doorways. In the dining hall, he sat across from a boxer from Poland who spoke no English. They communicated through nods and gestures. The food tasted strange. The water came in glass bottles with labels he could not read. At night, lying in the small bed of his assigned room, he felt the distance. Not just the miles between Rome and home. Something deeper. He was here to represent a country. But he wondered if that country would recognize what he was about to do. The gymnasium smelled like every gym he had ever known. Sweat, leather, liniment, rubber mats. But the size of the space made his chest tighten. This was not Joe Martin's basement. This was not a local tournament. The ceilings stretched impossibly high. The lights burned brighter than any he had trained under. His coach walked him through the daily routine. Road work at dawn, shadow boxing, bag work, sparring, rest. The rhythm was familiar, but the pressure underneath it was new. He watched other fighters train, boxers from the Soviet Union who moved with mechanical precision, fighters from Italy who had the home crowd behind them. Each one carried the same burden. Each one knew that in a few days, the world would be watching. One loss, and the dream ended. Cassius did not talk much during those early days. He observed. He listened. He felt the weight of what was coming. But there was something he did not expect. A strange calm that arrived in the mornings. When he laced up his shoes, when he wrapped his hands, when he stepped into the ring for sparring. His body remembered everything. Every lesson. Every drill. Every correction. The bicycle that had been stolen. The basement gym where it all started. The amateur fights. The national trials. The decision to come here. All of it had been leading to this moment. The path only made sense when you looked backward. The first fight came on a Tuesday afternoon. The arena filled slowly. Thousands of people finding their seats. Cameras positioned at every angle to capture what was about to happen. Announcers speaking in languages that blended together into a low hum of anticipation. He stood in the corner. His coach applied Vaseline to his eyebrows and cheekbones. The other fighter stared across the ring, trying to establish dominance before the bell even rang. Cassius stared back. Not with anger, not with aggression, just with presence. With the quiet knowledge that he belonged here. The bell had not rung yet, but the fight had already begun. When it did ring, his body moved without conscious thought. Jab to establish distance. Step to the side. Jab again to keep the opponent honest. Circle to avoid getting trapped on the ropes. The opponent lunged forward, throwing a wild combination. Cassius slipped the first punch, ducked under the second, countered with a straight right hand that snapped the other man's head back. The crowd reacted with a sound that was almost physical. He heard the roar, but did not absorb it. He was somewhere else. Focused. Present. Alive in a way he had never been before. The fight ended in his favor. 3 rounds, unanimous decision. The referee raised his arm. The crowd applauded. He returned to the locker room, sat on the bench, stared at his hands. They were shaking. Not from fear, not from exhaustion, from adrenaline, from relief, from the realization that he belonged here, that all the preparation had not been wasted, that the dream was still alive. The second fight was harder. The opponent was faster, more experienced. A fighter from a European country with a strong boxing tradition. For 2 rounds, Cassius felt himself being tested in ways he had not been tested before. His conditioning, his composure, his ability to adjust mid-fight when something was not working. In the 3rd round, he found an opening. A small gap in the other man's defense. A tendency to drop his right hand after throwing his jab. Cassius took it. The punch landed clean. The fight shifted. When the final bell rang, his hand was raised again. But something changed after that fight. The nerves that had been present before began to fade. In their place, a quiet confidence took root. Not arrogance, not pride. Just the knowledge that he could do this. That he was made for this. That every morning spent running in the dark, every afternoon spent hitting bags until his arms felt like lead, every night spent visualizing victory, all of it had been preparing him for exactly this. The semifinal came on a Thursday evening. By then, word had spread through the Olympic Village. The young American boxer with the fast hands and quick feet was advancing. Coaches from other countries started watching his training sessions. Journalists began asking his name, how old he was, where he came from, what he thought his chances were. He did not seek the attention, but he did not hide from it either. He answered their questions politely, smiled for their cameras, but kept his focus internal. The fight itself was a blur. Fast. Aggressive. The opponent came forward relentlessly, trying to pressure him into mistakes. Cassius moved, circled, countered, made him miss by inches, landed clean shots when the openings appeared. His conditioning held strong. His legs never tired. His hands stayed fast. The decision was unanimous. He was going to the final. That night, he could not sleep. He lay in bed, stared at the ceiling, thought about Louisville, about his parents, about Joe Martin standing in that basement gym, teaching a crying 12-year-old boy how to throw a proper jab, about every person who had believed in him. He thought about the kids in his neighborhood who would never leave Kentucky, about the men who came home from the factories too tired to dream, about what it would mean to stand on that podium, to hear the anthem, to bring something back that no one could take away, a gold medal, proof that dreams mattered. The final was scheduled for Saturday evening, the biggest stage, the highest stakes, the culmination of everything. He woke that morning and felt a strange stillness settle over him. No fear, no doubt, no nervousness, just readiness, just the calm that comes when you have done everything possible to prepare, and now all that remains is execution. He ate a light breakfast, toast, Fruit, water, nothing heavy. He walked the grounds of the Olympic Village one last time, watched the sun move across the Roman sky, noticed how the light changed color as morning shifted into afternoon. He did not think about the fight. He thought about the journey, how far he had come, how many small decisions had led to this single moment, how easy it would have been to quit at any point, how many times he had wanted to. But he had not quit, and now here he was. When he arrived at the arena that evening, the crowd was already roaring. Thousands of voices blending into a sound that felt like weather. Flags waving from every section. The energy in the building felt electric, dangerous, beautiful. He walked through the tunnel toward the ring. The lights hit him. The noise crashed over him like a wave. He climbed the steps, ducked through the ropes, stood in his corner. His opponent was already there. A strong fighter. Determined. Hungry. They both wanted the same thing. Only one would get it. The referee called them to the center, gave instructions in heavily accented English, told them to protect themselves at all times, to obey his commands, to fight with honor. He sent them back to their corners. The bell rang. For 3 rounds, they fought. Not wildly, not recklessly, but with everything they had, every skill, every lesson, every ounce of will. Cassius moved like he had never moved before. His jab was sharp, his footwork was clean. He slipped punches by fractions of inches, landed combinations that snapped his opponent's head back. His conditioning held. His focus never wavered. In the 3rd round, he felt his opponent slowing, breathing harder, dropping his hands slightly. Cassius pressed forward, controlled the pace, made him chase, made him miss, made him pay for every mistake. When the final bell rang, he knew. He did not need to hear the decision. He knew. The referee raised his arm. The crowd exploded. Thousands of people on their feet, noise that seemed to shake the building itself. Cassius stood there in the center of the ring, frozen, unable to process what had just happened. His coach climbed through the ropes, embraced him. Other members of the American team rushed forward, but he barely registered any of it. All he could think was, "I did it!" They placed the gold medal around his neck during the ceremony. The weight of it surprised him. Heavier than he had imagined. The metal cold against his chest. The ribbon rough against the back of his neck. The national anthem played. He stood at attention, looked out at the crowd, saw faces from dozens of countries watching him, felt tears forming but held them back. This was not the moment for tears. This was the moment he would remember forever. But later that night, alone in his room, holding the medal in his hands and turning it over slowly, another thought arrived. Quiet, uninvited, unavoidable. He was returning home to a country that had not changed while he was gone. A country where he could win Olympic gold, but still could not eat at certain restaurants. Where he could represent the nation on the world stage, but still faced doors that remained closed based on nothing but the color of his skin. Where he could be called a champion abroad, but still be treated as second class at home. The medal did not fix that. It only made the contradiction sharper, clearer, impossible to ignore. He did not speak about it yet, did not know how to articulate what he was feeling. He simply held the medal, felt its weight, studied the Olympic rings pressed into the gold, and understood, in a way that would take years to fully articulate, that greatness and equality were not the same thing, that one could be earned in a boxing ring. The other had to be demanded in the streets. Years later, when people asked him about Rome, He would say it was the beginning, not of his boxing career, but of his understanding. The moment a young man realized that the world was watching, and that what he did next would matter far more than what he had just accomplished. The gold medal hung around his neck, but the real weight was just starting to settle on his shoulders. Because winning for your country and being accepted by your country were two entirely different battles, and only one of them could be fought in a ring.